order for people to hear the music, we have to sell records. And in order to sell records, we have to get the sound.
Yeah, the problem is the sound, the problem is me, I got it. I get it.
What are you doing?
Sammy, we're in the middle of
I don't want to hear anything I have to say here right now.
He's never gonna sing the song.
Boy, if he doesn't sing this one, he's gonna have to come up with something else. We still got one more slot to fill.
You know, he has more talent than anyone I've ever seen. What if he never gets off the ground?
Hello?
Hey, Rich.
Hey, Gary, what's up, man?
I know you're slammed, but I got a friend who's asking for a favor. Would you have time to do a show?
Man, I don't know, we're kind of behind on this thing. The label's all over me about it.
It's on a Native American reservation.
Really?
Yeah, but it's all the way out in Arizona. It's like, you know, a million miles from Nashville. I know you're super busy working on a new album.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Truth was, I couldn't get away fast enough. I mean, I probably would have done a retreat on the moon if it meant getting space from the record company. The only thing I knew about the reservation was that it was called Window Rock and it was in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I really had no idea what to expect. Driving through the reservation was like being in another world. I mean, it was beautiful there, but sad at the same time. Children played in rundown streets. Some people barely left their homes at all. There's need here. Great need. I ended up staying a few days here working with the youth ministry team. I was able to get to know some of the kids and hear their stories, the good and the bad. It was one of the most real experiences of my life. And I didn't want it to end.
Lights out, 10 minutes.
Hey, Rich.
What's going on, man?
Really like your shirt.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I love this one. You know what? So it's pretty good.
Thanks.
There you go. It's yours.
Hey, can I talk to you?
Sure.
I could tell as soon as we sat down that this kid had something he needed to share. We got to talking, he told me about how 6 months earlier he had shot himself in the stomach. We talked late into the night about depression and despair and how he thought he had nothing to hope for until he got so desperate he tried to kill himself, and then the humiliation of failing even at that. I tried my hardest to find the words, to be of some comfort to him, to let him know he wasn't alone. Eventually I was able to write them down.
Come to the bottom's early to orbit there you are. Whether you fall or whether you fall, it seems you can never get too far. Some
This might keep him around a little bit longer.
Maybe. We're on borrowed time, man.
Love that seems so far away is standing very near. You're on the verge of a miracle, standing there. Oh, you're on the verge of a miracle, just waiting to be made. Open your eyes and see. You're on the verge of a miracle.
Alright, sorry for the longer clip than normal. That was hard to tell the story about what was going on there. It was just a clip just a couple minutes long, but figure you guys forgive me this once. As I mentioned to you last week, kind of revealed that Aaron and I are buying a house, which is just a crazy thing that's happening. I mean, it's absolutely crazy how the whole thing played out. We've had our eyes open to the possibility for a little while. Since Simon was born, we knew we kind of eventually getting some more space. And the catch is that we can't just buy anywhere if I want to keep the seat that I was elected to last year. If we buy outside of almost like a third of a mile square, if we buy outside of that, I have to let go of the seat. And, I mean, that's, if need be, that, okay, we can deal with that. It's not life or death, but you don't like to keep it. So we've been keeping our eyes open as things popped up in that little section of my community, and things have come and gone, and it just hasn't been anything really got excited about. Well, this house showed up, and the other thing was we didn't want a house that was needing a whole gut job. Like we didn't want to rebuild the whole thing. We did that once already. We're done with that. So this house came on the market a couple weeks ago on a street that is in my community that I need to be in, and it's just in great condition. Just needs a little paint here, maybe a new floor here or something. Not anything dramatic. You know, like last time we had to replace a bathroom and a kitchen and doesn't need all that, which is great. And let me actually show you a picture of the house. This is the house that came on the market. And the day after it came on the market, we put an offer. Right, let's get it, get it done. Let's jump on it. Well, before I get to that, I jumped ahead too far. This house jumped on the market, and my heart skipped a beat because it's in the right place, the right condition, right size. We walked through, they hit the market. Aaron walked through the next day, and we both decided that we should do something with this. Well, I have some really great real estate agents. One of them happens to be my mom, the other happens to be my sister. So I give them a little plug. And they said to me, they said, look, if you're serious about getting this house or any house, you need to get pre-qualified, otherwise you're just playing make-believe. It's one thing, it's fun to go look and shop around and see what's on the market, but until you're qualified for a mortgage, it doesn't matter. Unless you have cash to pay, you gotta do the work of getting pre-qualified. And honestly, I hate that whole idea. I hate the idea of, if any of you ever gotten a mortgage or have a mortgage or applied for a mortgage or whatever, you know how just intrusive that whole process is. I mean, they want to know everything about your life history. They want to know your credit history. They want to know your work, employment history. They want to know, what kind of pants you wear. They want to know everything about you before the bank will say, yeah, we'll give you a mortgage. And it's even more difficult for me because I dare to own a business, and that makes it even more red flags apparently go up when you own a business with banks. Banks say, how dare you decide to, not work a typical 9 to 5? How dare you try that? So there's all these hoops you gotta go through, and I really didn't like the process, but we decided, okay, I guess we want this house. So we called the bank to get pre-qualified, the bank that owns our current mortgage, saying, we like working with you guys, we're gonna stick with you guys, and we're gonna just give us more money, right, and we'll sell the other house, and we'll be fine. It's all good, right? You already gave us a mortgage, shouldn't that part. Well, the bank decided, no, we do a business, we're not gonna qualify you. And it was this whole process that was just awful. We finally figured out through some hoops and leaping some hurdles how we could get qualified and everything worked out. The second step of it, though, was that we had to list our current house. Because I'm not in are we serious? The second answer to that was, well, we've got to list our house. And that was an even harder step. Because we rebuilt this house from the bottom up, practically. This house is ours. It was designed, I mean, it's an older house, but we designed it the way we wanted it. We rebuilt the kitchen, we rebuilt the bathroom, we added a room off the back end, a deck off the back of that. I mean, everything has our signature on it. It's our house. But we need more space. And so we had to make this decision, do we want that house? Do we want to stay in this house? If we're serious, we've got to list our own house. So we decided, okay, let's try it. We listed our house just to see if anybody would even have any interest. Because surely no one's really going to buy our house. In 24 hours, someone made an above asking price offer on our house. It's ridiculous. It's insane. This was an idea, but it wasn't really anything on our radar. And all of a sudden now, I have 3 weeks to pack up our house and move because we put the offer in this place and it was accepted. And it's nuts. It's been crazy. It's been an unbelievable process. But God's been guiding each step, and all the ducks have been lining up, and it takes a miracle to do that. But here's the point I was wanting to get to. The reason mentioning this is that it's one thing to be looking at potential houses. It's one thing to be shopping around, to see what pops up on the market. It's fun to play house, right? Like pretend like you're shopping, to see. It's something else entirely to go through the mortgage paperwork and put your own home on the market. It's something else entirely to actually take the steps of buying a home. And as far as decent real estate agents are concerned, and as far as home sellers are concerned, you're not a serious buyer unless you take those steps, unless you go through that process. Unless you're willing to go through the necessary steps and go through the process of making a transaction a reality. Without taking these necessary steps, you're just pretending. You're just playing make-believe. And while it may be fun, it's really just a waste of everyone's time. The same thing is true, I believe, about our faith. At the heart of it, that's the lesson we have to learn here this morning. Without certain actions in our lives, without certain physical, tangible things happening in our lives, without what the Bible calls, quote-unquote, works, our faith is utterly meaningless. Throughout the past few weeks, we've been going through this teaching series called Ragamuffin. The tagline for it has been the good news for broken people. And in the series, we've been allowing the life and music of a man named Rich Mullins to guide us in our reflections on the gospel of Jesus Christ. And for those who might need a quick review, Rich Mullins was a Christian musician whose career was particularly popular in the early mid-90s. He was different. What made him unique was his difference in terms of how he portrayed the Christian art and music scene. He, unlike Christian pop stars at the time, Rich Mullins was an open book. He didn't buy the whole polished, prim and proper Christian image. He decided that in his musical career, he was just going to be real with people. He was going to be raw with people and say, look, my life is broken. My life is a mess. But by the grace of God, Christ loves me too. And he's using my gifts in order to bless the kingdom of God. And that's really what propelled him, other than his amazing musical ability, propelled him to stardom was the fact that he was just so raw and so real. And so that's really what made him different, what made him stand out. I fell in love with Rich Mullins and his music and his life in the early 2000s when I was going to Bible college. I told that story about being kicked out of my school. And I was a little bit of I still kind of am, I go against the flow of things. I like to be a stick in the mud sometimes and challenge the status quo. And that kind of follows in Rich Mullins' heart, so I really identified with him. And because what I noticed is that his life made a real and tangible difference. And it wasn't just because of his music. It was because of the way he lived his life. It was because of the way he shared the good news of Christ's death and resurrection for real people, broken people. And in the clip we saw moments ago from the movie called Ragamuffin, which is all about Rich's life, Rich, he gets a call during one of the most busy seasons of his life, record season. It's time to put a new record out there. And he gets a random call out of the blue from a friend who asked him if he would do a quick concert out on a Native American reservation out in Arizona. And Rich not only performed for the people living on the reservation, as you saw, he decided to spend some time there and work on the reservation. He got involved in the youth ministry, he got involved with, especially, there was some young adult work that he did, some college-age type kids, but he just started loving on the people on this reservation. And it was during this time, he also helped put in new buildings, he got involved in building a new school, and he did whatever needed to be done in order to pour his heart out for these people that he met there. And the work that he did on this reservation ultimately inspired new music for some of his future albums. As you kind of saw hinted in the clip, it inspired one song, but there was entire albums that it inspired after that. It was around this time that Rich said this during one of his concerts. I love this quote from Rich Mullins. He says, Christianity is not about building an absolute secure little niche in the world where you can live with your perfect little wife and your perfect little children and your beautiful little house where you have no gays or minority groups anywhere near you. Christianity is about learning to love like Jesus loved. And Jesus loved the poor. Jesus loved the broken. James, the actual brother of Jesus, we're back, going backwards 2,000 years now, in a rough transition. The actual brother of Jesus wrote this about this same idea in his letter, which is found in your New Testament, so the back of your Bibles. He said these words in James chapter 2. He says, "What good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith but don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing and say goodbye and have a good day, stay warm and eat well. But then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? So you see, faith by itself isn't enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless." Now someone may argue some people have faith, others have good deeds, but I say, how can you show me your faith if you don't have good deeds? I'll show you my faith by my good deeds. You say you have faith for you believe that there is one God. Good for you. Even the demons believe this, and they tremble in terror. How foolish. Can't you see that faith without good deeds is useless? Now I want you to write this phrase down. If you're taking notes or you're keeping up with us and you're looking for the nugget in order to take home with you and to concentrate on something this week and something that will revolutionize your relationship with God, here's what I want you to write down. It's 5 simple words. Faith without works is dead. Faith without works is dead. I think we all need to say that together one time. Faith without works is dead. We've heard it in the message from James, we've heard it in the song from Rich Mullins. Now I'm going to try to explain to you why this is such an important lesson for us. It sounds quite simple, but it is life-changing and profound. Because most of us don't live it out. And most of us don't understand the importance of living this truth out. For those of you who've been around the Christian world for any length of time, you've been a Christian for quite, for a few years at least now, you probably might see this phrase, you might think, well, that seems to contradict some of the other things I've read in the New Testament. Like, there's this guy named Paul, right? And Paul seemed to say the exact opposite. He seemed to say that it was not works that saved us, but grace and belief in God. For instance, in Ephesians chapter 2, we read this from the Apostle Paul. He says, God saved you by your grace. You have that? God saved you by your grace when you believe. And you can't take credit for this. It's from God. It's a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we have done, so none of us can boast about it. And famously, even before Paul says these words, we remember what Jesus said in his most famous verse from John chapter 3, verse 16, which Jesus says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life." Now, how do we reconcile this idea that John says faith, belief in Jesus is what saves us, and Paul says, grace is what saves us, and believing that grace is what saves us? How do we reconcile that with what James has to say grace, and works all come together in perfect harmony. I want to do something strange with you this morning. I want to do something that I never asked you to do and never imagined I would ever ask you to do in church. You guys are going to laugh at me, but I promise you, there's an application. I want you to close your eyes for a moment, and I want you to draw an image in your mind. Draw an image. I'm not going to tell you what to draw. I'm going to give you a subject, a description. I want you to imagine for a moment your least favorite politician. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's a man or a woman. I don't care if he's a Democrat or a Republican or anywhere in between. I don't care, because it'll work, trust me. Imagine your least favorite politician, and now while you're thinking about that person, whoever that person may be, I want you to think about why you don't like them. What is it about them that bothers you? What is it that seems so frustrating? Now, without opening your eyes, because I don't want to give away any answers, I want you to raise your hand if you're thinking about it, if anything that you're thinking about has something to do with somebody who has a lot to say, but not a lot of substance to their words. Anyone thinking about something like that? Yeah, most of us. Yeah. You know what you're thinking about. It's okay. It doesn't matter if you're thinking Republican or Democrat, you're thinking about the presidential candidates, or you're thinking about somebody in Congress, or you're thinking about even those local elected people, you know, those crazy ones. It doesn't matter who you're thinking about. The reality is we all get frustrated by politicians most often because we believe, at least some degree, that what they have to say is just empty words. It's just endless, it's an endless vacuum in which they get all this hot air from, and there's no substance to it, right? Like, it seems like they just like to hear themselves talk. They like to see themselves on TV, they like to hear themselves on the radio, they like to see themselves written about in the newspaper, just so they can get the votes, just so they can get reelected. It's all empty, and it's an empty vessel with no substance, no meaning behind it. Now, whether or not we get frustrated by politicians or not, we can all imagine people who are really good at talking a good game, right? People who are really good at talking themselves up and making themselves look good. They use the right lingo. They say the right things at the right time. They sound smart, they sound experienced, they sound educated. But in reality, if we really push them, we find that it's really just a bunch of fluff. There's no substance. They talk a great game, but there's nothing really behind it. There's no meat behind it. These are the kinds of people that James is writing about. James is writing about people that, he's particularly concerned about people in the church who love to talk about their faith, who love to talk about how great of a relationship with God they have, how close they are with God, and how wonderful their faith is, and how it's changing their lives. But in reality, there's not much happening. Behind the scenes, they're just their usual old Joe, or usual old Jane. They're the same old person that they were before they came into a relationship with Christ. And this is what bothers James, because he knows intimately what Jesus was all about. James was Jesus' brother. James struggled to believe in Jesus until his death and resurrection. He struggled and didn't have the knowledge about what Jesus was all about, and he doubted him. But when he realized what was happening and what Jesus was offering in terms of God's grace, in terms of a new kingdom, in terms of eternal life, it changed him inside and out. It made him a new person. It redefined his life. And so James gets really frustrated with people who would talk about loving his brother, but in no way reflecting his life. Another way to kind of reconcile these two ideas of salvation by grace and salvation by works is to think about this up front, this stage area, as a lifetime line. And if I'm over here on the left, your left, my right, let's pretend this area over here is our life before we come to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. Before we have any relationship with God, we're just the usual Chad, we're the usual Angela, we're the usual Lori. We're the person we were born into this world as. And then somewhere along the line in our life, that could be when you're young, maybe you're a teenager, or maybe you were a young adult, maybe it was when you were 40, 50, or 60 years old, I don't know. Some point in your life, you came to the aisle here, and you recognized that you needed Christ in your life. You needed salvation. You could not fix what was broken in your life. You couldn't fill that hole that God wants to fill by yourself. You couldn't earn it, so you had to have Jesus Christ in your life. And so you came to this Paul and Jesus are talking about salvation by faith, about salvation by grace, they are talking to people who are over here in their life. They're talking about people, they're talking to people who don't quite know yet what it means to have salvation through the grace of God. James, on the other hand, is talking to people over here. He's talking to active Christians. He's talking to believers. He's talking about people who should know better. So salvation does come by faith. This is what I'm trying to communicate. Salvation does come by faith, by grace, by accepting Jesus. But once we enter a life of discipleship of following Jesus, we're not saved by our works, but the faith that we placed right here should change us over here. Does that make sense? I'm trying to communicate because this is an important struggle that a lot of Christians have. In fact, for the past 2,000 years, there have been people in the church who thought that James should not belong in the New Testament because it seems so opposite to what Paul talks about, what Jesus talks about. But this is how we understand that God was trying to bring a holistic view of what it means to become a Christian. It's not just about getting baptized. It's not just about placing your faith in Christ. It's about life change too. It's about redefining who you are. It's about starting to reflect Jesus in your own life. So to bring this all together, we can see that there is harmony between James and Paul and Jesus. Are we saved by works? No. Should there be works after we are saved? Yes. Jesus, he touches on this point in a roundabout way in his most famous sermon called the Sermon on the Mount. In Matthew chapter 7, he says probably was one of the most alarming things that when most people read the Sermon on the Mount, they read it and realize, oh, that's pretty harsh. Jesus says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. That's thinking about it. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, do we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many mighty works in your name? And I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. I want to point out that where he says, Lord, Lord, do we not prophesy in your name? Do we not speak in your name? Do we not cast out demons in your name? Again, another verbal idea. Speaking verbally, commanding someone or something to do something. And then we get to this phrase, to do many mighty works. And it's hard to see this in the English as it is in the Greek. But the Greek word that is used there for do many mighty works is a very specific verb that involves public displays. Public displays of faith, public displays of affection, public displays of love. Again, it's all about what people see. It's all open. It's all out in the public eye. It has nothing to do with what's going on inside. What this all boils down to is the same question Aaron and I had to answer when we had to decide whether or not we were going to seriously pursue the house of wonder. Were we serious? Or were we not? If we were serious about the house, about buying this new house so that we can give our children room to grow and so that we can have space to be more open and hospitable to having people in our house, then it was time for us to demonstrate that by getting to work, by actually pursuing a new mortgage, by actually listing our current house for sale. That same question applies to each of us when it comes to our faith. Are we serious? Are we serious about being a child of God? Are we serious about allowing God into our lives and changing us? Are we serious about becoming a disciple of Jesus? Are we serious about expanding God's kingdom? Are we serious about growing our church? Are we serious about sharing the love, grace, and mercy of Jesus Christ for the world that so desperately needs it? Are we serious about our faith? Because if we're serious about our faith, if we're serious about what some people call their religion, notice what James has to say earlier on in his letter. It says, pure religion, James chapter 1, pure religion in the sight of God, the Father, means caring for orphans and widows in their distress, and refusing to let the world corrupt you. James chapter 1, verse 27. Pure religion and genuine religion, in the sight of God, means caring for orphans and widows in their distress, and refusing to let the world corrupt you. And just so we're clear, this isn't some sort of Christian law that says the only people you have to serve are widows and orphans. James is simply using an example that was popular in his day, because women could not work to take care of their own families. If they were without their husbands, they were not legally allowed to go to work and get a job and pay the bills. So they needed help. Same thing with orphans. Children were helpless. In a lot of ways today, we have to be mindful of widows and orphans too. But I think if James were writing in the 21st century, especially in 21st century America, and he was telling us what pure and genuine religion looks like, what actual Christian works look like, he might say something else. He might say, for example, pure and genuine religion in the sight of God means caring for addicts. It means caring for immigrants, whether legal or illegal. He might say another example of genuine faith is one that cares for the inner city kids growing up surrounded by poverty and endless violence in their streets and in their homes. He might say another example of genuine faith is one that cares for people struggling with their sexual orientation or their gender identity. He might say another example of genuine faith is one that cares for those who are lonely, those who are depressed, those who are suicidal. He might say another example of genuine faith is one that cares for the millions of war veterans who can't find work or suffering from PTSD, or who are among the 22 veterans a day who are taking their own lives. The list can go on and on and on. The idea is that pure and genuine religion, a pure and honest faith in God, means that your life is being used by Him to care for people who are in need of help, who need to know that they are loved as they are, that God's grace is on them as they are. Before we finish this up here, I want to wrap this all up and bring it back around to Rich Mullins. Rich's faith was being tested. The record company wanted him to be thinking about nothing more than his next album. They had him working every waking minute on his music. It was becoming stale and dry. He was getting frustrated. He didn't like the music he was performing. And then the phone rang. The phone rang with an invitation to come out to a Native American reservation. And after working on the reservation for some time, Rich started to find himself back writing music again. But this time writing music with renewed passion, renewed clarity, renewed vigor he hadn't known in quite some time. And I'm convinced that, amongst other reasons, this is primarily one of the reasons why God says it is so important for our faith to be followed by selfless works. Yes, our works share the love of God. We share the love of God by what we do, by putting hands and feet to our faith. And it's a nice thing to do, and it does bless others. But whether or not our selfless service brings someone to a saving knowledge of Jesus in that moment or not, the one thing that it always does, regardless, one thing it always does, is it reminds us of God's heart for people. And I know the excuses. You've heard and I've heard, and we all know the excuses. We're all busy, we're all overworked, we're all underpaid, we're all running from work to our kids' sporting events, to the chores at home, to the needs of our families. I get it. But if we don't make time for selfless service in the name of Jesus, we will never fully grasp the heart of God for people around us. And that's why I'm begging you. I'm literally begging you. Those of you who are here this morning, I'm begging you to help us out at His place. On June 18th, we're going to go to His place in inner city ministry, do nothing more than to clean a house, spray Windex on windows, to mop the floor and run a vacuum. I mean, honestly, we're going to be organizing and sorting. That's what we're going to be doing. It does not take any particular skill. If you've ever washed dishes at home, you can help clean up this place. I promise you. It's not special labor. We're not going to be baptizing hundreds of kids by the work that we do on June 18th. We're not. Admit that. But that's not the point. By doing it, you will see and hear about these young people whom God is crazy about. And you will see and hear from people who give their lives for these young kids whom God is crazy about. And your heart's going to be softened. Your life is going to be molded into the likeness of Jesus Himself. You'll begin to experience the love of God in your life in ways never before possible. So I want you to come with us to His place. But even more than that, if you can't come that day, I understand we all have things we got to do. But if you can't come to His place on June 18th, I want you to go through this week finding ways, no matter how small, no matter how insignificant it may seem, to do good works, to serve and care for broken people around you. Find ways that you can just be selfless and just do something for someone else. I promise you, as much as it will bless them, more so, it will bless you. I promise you that. Jesus gave everything.